If your child has ever won round one and then completely fallen apart in round two, you're not alone. And today, we're fixing that because later in this episode, we're breaking down the 60-second reset that can flip a losing match instantly. Now, picture this. You walk into the venue, heart pounding, your kid fights in 10 minutes, and you forgot the mouth guard. That moment, it happens more than you think.
And I've seen it happen hundreds of times. Kids down 4-1, overwhelmed, completely gassed, use this reset and walk back out and win 6-5.
I'm Rivera, and that disaster scenario, it's way more common than you think.
And I'm Master Daniel Park. Today we're breaking down everything that happens on tournament day, from the moment you leave your house to that car ride home. And later, I'm revealing the one practical adjustment you must make in the 60 seconds between rounds that can completely flip a losing match.
Ooh, I love that. So let's dive right in. Daniel, you've been coaching for over 15 years. What's the biggest difference between families who arrive stressed versus those who show up early and prepared?
It all starts with one mistake that destroys entire tournament days.
Wait, what mistake?
Thinking check-in time is fight time.
Oh, let me give you a real-world example of that bracket reading disaster. Last tournament I was at, this family shows up at 9 a.m. thinking their daughter fights in the first division. They didn't realize there were 3 age groups ahead of her. Here's where most families get tournament day completely wrong.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Here's how to read brackets properly. First, count the total competitors in your division. Second, figure out how many rings they're running. Third, and this is critical, look at the seed numbers. If your kid is seed 47 out of 60, they're fighting in the second half of the bracket, which could mean 2 to 3 hours of waiting.
Right.
Here's the math. If there are 60 kids in your child's division and they can run about 12 matches per hour per ring, you're looking at potentially 3 hours before your first match. Preparation isn't emotional, it's mathematical.
3 hours, and that's assuming no delays. So the prepared families, they're bringing snacks, entertainment, and most importantly, they have a warm-up plan that doesn't burn out their kid before they even step on the mat.
Exactly. And speaking of preparation, your check-in checklist should include sparring gear with name labels, multiple mouth guards,
Yes.
current rank certificate, and registration confirmation on your phone. But here's what most people miss. Bring cash for parking and concessions. These venues love to surprise you with $10 parking fees.
And here's something nobody tells you about venue navigation. Arrive 30 minutes early and do a reconnaissance walk. Find the restrooms, locate the warm-up area, figure out where the head table is for questions, and most importantly, find the snack bar before the lines get crazy.
Smart advice. And during check-in, here's what actually happens that catches families off guard. They'll weigh your child, check their registration, and sometimes do a quick gear inspection right there. I've seen kids get turned away because their chest protector was the wrong size or their headgear was damaged. Always bring backup gear.
Oh my gosh, yes. I remember one tournament where this kid had to borrow gear from 3 different families because nothing he brought passed inspection. His mom was literally running around the venue asking strangers if they had a spare chest protector. It was chaos. But you know what was amazing? The whole Taekwondo community stepped up and helped. Oh my gosh, yes. And you know what I love seeing at these tournaments? All the team spirit. I was at a competition last month and saw this in the bleachers. It's like an invisible high five between all the families who get it.
That community aspect is huge, but let's talk about what happens once you're checked in. The atmosphere can be overwhelming, especially for first-time competitors.
Totally. And by the way, listeners, I want to know, are you the early and prepared family or the screeching into the parking lot family? Drop a comment and let us know your tournament arrival horror stories.
Most kids lose their match before they ever step on the mat, and it's because of this.
So you're telling me most kids lose before the match even starts?
Now, let's get into the science. This is where I earned my nickname, the Technician. Progressive activation is everything. Your warm-up should start with dynamic stretching, not static holds.
Right.
Leg swings, hip circles, arm rotations. You're preparing your nervous system, not just your muscles. Then light kicking drills, working up to about 60% intensity maximum.
Okay, break this down for us step by step, Daniel. What does a perfect 15-minute pre-match warm-up look like?
Perfect question. Let's make this simple.
A perfect warm-up has 3 phases. Phase 1, wake the body up. Light movement, nothing intense. Phase 2, activate the fight patterns. Kicks without power. Phase 3, light speed, not heavy power. You're turning the system on, not draining it.
And this is crucial because of what you call the adrenaline dump, right?
Exactly. That's the adrenaline trap. They go 100% in round 1 and crash in round 2. That's not conditioning, that's adrenaline mismanagement.
Oh, I've seen this so many times. The kid who dominates the first round and then just fades.
Now, let's talk about electronic scoring. Most kids don't understand the system, and it costs them points. You're not trying to hurt your opponent, you're trying to score. Clean contact beats power every time. Think crisp, not crush. The sensors need clean, solid contact. You're not trying to hurt your opponent, you're trying to register on the system. This means your technique has to be precise. Foot position, follow-through, and most importantly, staying in bounds. I see kids throw beautiful kicks that don't score because they step out immediately after.
Okay, so now we get to the good stuff. Daniel, you promised us that one tactical adjustment that can flip a match. What is it?
I call it the 60-second reset.
This is the part I have been waiting for.
Here's the structure. 20 seconds, breathe and assess. 20 seconds, choose one adjustment. 20 seconds, move your body. I had a student down 4-1, overwhelmed, completely gassed. Used this reset, focused on one counter and 1-6-5. Nothing changed except clarity.
So let's get specific about this 60-second reset. Can you walk us through a real scenario? Say your kid just lost the first round and they're down 4-1 going into round 2.
Perfect scenario. First 20 seconds, deep breathing and assessment. They need to identify what their opponent did successfully. Was it distance management? Did they counterattack effectively? Were they getting caught off guard by a specific technique? Second 20 seconds, pick one counter strategy. If the opponent scored with roundhouse kicks, visualize closing the distance and using front kicks to the body. Don't try to fix everything. Final 20 seconds, physical and mental activation. Light bouncing, hand claps, remind themselves of their range and timing. And here's the key mental key. They need to enter round 2 with a specific game plan, not just hoping to do better. Champions have a tactical response ready before that second round begins.
I love how tactical this gets. Give us another scenario. What if your kid dominated round 1, but their opponent is clearly adjusting their strategy?
The classic trap. Your kid won round 1 6-2, feels confident, but their opponent just had a coaching conversation and is coming out with a completely different approach. This is where most kids get overconfident and sloppy. The reset strategy here is completely different. Reinforce what's working, but prepare for their opponent's adjustment. Visualize maintaining distance if they start rushing, or practice your counterattacks if they become more defensive.
That's brilliant. And it ties into modern WT rules perfectly, doesn't it? It's not about power anymore.
Precisely. Technique wins when talent gets tired. The current World Taekwondo rules reward precision over power, strategy over aggression. Kids need to understand that avoiding engagement penalties and constantly moving backwards can lose you a match faster than getting scored on.
I've seen kids lose matches without getting scored on. That's not a skill issue. That's awareness. Under current rules, if you're consistently backing up without attacking, you get a Kiango warning. 3 warnings and you lose a point. I see kids lose matches not because they got scored on, but because they accumulated penalties. Quick, biggest mistakes I see at tournaments: warming up too hard, not understanding penalties, trying new techniques under pressure, no plan between rounds. That alone costs matches. If you're the type of parent who wants to understand why matches are won or lost, not just guess, hit subscribe. That's what we do here. What about the boundary rules? I see so many kids step out right after landing a beautiful technique.
Exactly. Here's what kids need to understand. The boundary penalty happens the moment any part of your foot crosses that line, not when you land outside. So if you throw a turning kick and your pivot foot slides over during the technique, that's a Kiango, even if you land back inside. The key is maintaining spatial awareness throughout the entire technique, not just during the contact moment.
Practice your combinations in a smaller space to build that boundary awareness.
Right, right. So let's talk about the hardest part, handling wins and losses. Because honestly, what parents say in that car ride home can make or break a young athlete's confidence.
The 48-hour rule is sacred. No technical discussions for 2 full days. Whether they won gold or went home empty-handed, the car ride home should be about celebrating the effort, not analyzing the performance.
Exactly. Save the video review for later. In that moment, they need to feel supported, not criticized.
And here's what not to say. You would have won if you just listened to me, or you had him in the first round. Instead, try, I'm proud of how hard you fought, or that was some impressive technique out there.
Daniel, I want to get really practical here. Let's role play some post-match scenarios. Your kid just lost their first match and they're crying in the car. What do you say?
First, let them feel it. Don't immediately try to fix or explain. Start with validation. I can see how disappointed you are. That was really hard. Then shift to effort recognition. You showed incredible courage getting on that mat today. I saw how hard you were fighting out there. Finally, future focus without pressure. When you're ready, we can talk about what we learned, but right now, let's just focus on the fact that you competed.
Okay, flip scenario. Your kid just won gold and they're over the moon. How do you celebrate without creating pressure for future tournaments?
Celebrate the process, not just the outcome. I'm so proud of how you executed your game plan, or did you feel how controlled your techniques were out there? Avoid making it about being the best or beating other kids. Instead, focus on personal growth, like you stuck to your strategy even when you were behind, or I loved seeing your confidence grow with each round. This builds intrinsic motivation rather than external validation dependency.
Let's talk about the bigger picture. How do you help a young athlete develop resilience for the long term? Not just for the next tournament, but for their entire martial arts journey.
This is where the 48-hour rule becomes crucial for long-term development. After that cooling off period, have what I call growth conversations, not critique sessions. Ask questions like, what felt different about your technique today versus in class? Or what did you notice about your breathing during the match? This teaches them to self-assess rather than waiting for external evaluation. The goal is developing athletes who can coach themselves.
I love that approach. And what about when kids hit those inevitable plateaus or losing streaks? How do you keep them motivated when progress isn't linear?
Plateaus are where champions separate from competitors. This is when you shift the focus from tournament results to skill development. Start tracking micro improvements, like your stance was more stable today, or I noticed you kept your hands up the entire round. Create new challenges that aren't competition dependent. Maybe it's mastering a new combination, improving flexibility benchmarks, or leadership goals like helping younger students. The key is maintaining forward momentum even when external results seem stagnant.
You know what? This reminds me of something I saw at Nationals last year. There was this kid who'd been losing matches for 6 months straight, right? But his coach kept tracking his improvement in specific techniques. By the time he finally won again, he was a completely different fighter. More technical, more strategic, better distance management. The losses actually made him better.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Losses are data, not verdicts. Every match teaches you something about distance, timing, strategy, or mental toughness. The kids who learn to extract lessons from defeats become unstoppable. They develop what I call competition intelligence, the ability to read opponents, adapt mid-match, and execute under pressure. You can't learn that from just winning.
Before we continue, I want to hear from all our listeners out there. Comment below and tell us what's been your biggest tournament day surprise. Was it a kid who shocked everyone with an upset victory, a gear malfunction disaster, or maybe a heartwarming moment that reminded you why we love this sport? Share your stories, the good, the bad, and the absolutely ridiculous. That's such a game changer. And I think this is where a lot of traditional martial arts coaches struggle with modern competition. It's not about breaking boards anymore. It's about playing a technical game that requires both strategy and precision.
Absolutely. Modern competition Taekwondo is like tactical chess at lightning speed. You need to understand distance zones, timing windows, and scoring patterns. Here's an advanced tip.
Watch your opponent during their warm-up. Are they favoring their right leg? Do they have a go-to combination? Most kids step onto the mat without any scouting information, but champions study their opponents before the first round even begins.
I love that level of preparation. And you know what I've noticed? The families who embrace this detailed strategic approach, they're not just creating better competitors, they're raising kids who understand that success comes from preparation, adaptation, and mental toughness. These skills transfer way beyond the tournament mat. Okay, rapid fire time. Daniel, biggest beginner mistake you see at tournaments?
Trying new techniques for the first time in competition. Tournaments are for executing what you know, not experimenting.
Mental toughness tip for those final 30 seconds when you're exhausted.
Focus on one technique. Not winning, not the score, not the crowd. Just land one clean technique. Everything else is noise.
Perfect. So here's our key takeaway for today. Tournament day doesn't create champions. Preparation does. From reading that bracket correctly to mastering the 60-second reset, success happens in the details.
And remember, whether your kid brings home gold or just experience, they showed up and competed. That takes courage.
Next week on Episode 8, How to Build a Complete Fighter. We're talking about the training methodologies that create well-rounded athletes, not just tournament specialists. If you didn't yell Kia at least once this week, did you even train?
Until next time, remember, technique wins when talent gets tired.